Hi everyone, and welcome to a new Simple GIS client video tutorial. And in today's demonstration, I'm going to be demonstrating the georeferencing functionality in Simple GIS client. Of course, georeferencing is valuable when you have imagery or some other data set that is not tied to any real-world coordinate system, and you need to make those connections in order for the data to appear in the correct location on your map. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have some type of base map data or something that you can use to reference the imagery or other data set that you have too. And in today's particular demonstration, I have a new Simple GIS client project that I've loaded. And for the base map, I have the OpenStreetMap data tile mapping set loaded that I'm going to use as the reference to georeference my imagery to in this case. So I have this already loaded, and to begin with, the first thing you'll need to do is locate the Geo Processing Menu at the top of the Map Data View document in your Simple GIS client project. And if I was to click on this Geo Processing pull-down menu, of course it's going to expand and reveal a set of other menu options. And about midway down on this set of menus, you should see a menu item called Geo Reference Data. And so as I click on this menu item, the first thing that would appear is a file selection dialog box allowing you to select the data that you're wanting to georeference. Now, in most normal circumstances, this is normally some type of raster data, whether it's a JPEG or a JPEG 2000 or TIFF image, something of that nature. However, you can georeference other types of data. For example, if you had a CAD DXF data set that had not been georeferenced to a real-world coordinate system, you could also use the same technique to georeference that data set as well. But in this case, for today's demonstration, I actually have a JPEG 2000 aerial image here that I'm going to georeference to my base map. And so I'm going to select my image, and then I'll click on Open. And as I do, you should notice a couple of things that'll happen. One is you'll get this new dialog box that comes up called Geo Reference Data. And this dialog box has a set of controls in it that has, some edit boxes for the raster X, raster Y coordinate. So this is the actual coordinate system on the image in pixels that acts as a point. And then it also has a vector X, vector Y set of edit boxes. And this represents the real world coordinate that you're wanting to tie this pixel coordinate from the image to. In the main part of the dialog box is a map view that shows the image that you selected. And along the left-hand side of the dialog box is a set of control buttons. And so you have a button here, and as you hover over these buttons, you'll see the help hint pop up. And so this first button is just zoom to all, so you can click on that to zoom to the entire extent of the image or data that you've loaded that you're wanting to georeference. Then you also have a zoom out button, and again, it's pretty self-explanatory. As you click on it, it just simply zooms out on the image. You also have a zoom in, and if you click on this tool button, you can actually click on the image and draw a rectangle to zoom in to a particular area. You also have a pan button, and again, if you click on this button and then just click and drag on the image in the map, it allows you to pan around the image. And then below that is another button called Insert Control Point. And this is the button that as you populate this raster X, raster Y, and the vector X, vector Y coordinates, as you click on this button, it will insert that relationship as a control point in this grid located at the bottom of your dialog box. And so as you do this, you'll click on this button to insert those control points, and you need at least 3 control points in order to georeference your image. The other thing I will point out here is in this main map area of the georeference dialog box, It acts very similar to the map data view document in your Simple GIS client, in that if your mouse is equipped with a mouse wheel, you can also zoom in and out by just simply positioning your mouse inside this map area and scrolling on the mouse wheel. And you can also pan if you position your mouse inside this map area and your mouse has a center mouse button, or if your mouse wheel acts as a center mouse button, you can just click and drag to pan as well. Now, the other thing you may notice that happened when we selected this image is in your Simple GIS Client project window, if you notice on the table of contents on your map data view document, it inserted that image at the bottom of your list of layers. And it inserts it at the bottom by default. So if your data that you were referencing this particular image to was vector data and it was or somewhat transparent, then you might want to leave your image at the bottom. But if your base map data is something like this OpenStreetMap tile mapping set, which is opaque, you may want to move your image up above this, since Simple GIS Client renders essentially from the bottom up. So it starts by rendering the bottommost layer first, and then each subsequent layer is rendered on top of the preceding layers. So if you leave this image below this OpenStreetMap base map data, it may not be visible once it's georeferenced. But it's very easy to change the order of your layers in your map. You just simply click on the layer and drag it to the position that you want it to be in and release. And as you can see, it changes the order of your layers in your table of contents. Now, it's still not showing this image on my map right now because it hasn't been georeferenced. So as we georeference this, it will become visible, which you'll see very shortly. So to begin with, we're going to come back to our Geo Reference Data dialog box, and I'm just going to click and drag it kind of over here to the right side of my screen. And I'm going to zoom out on my image. So a couple of points. As you're georeferencing data, like I said, you need at least 3 control points, and you kind of want to spread the control points out around your image. In other words, you don't want to just select 3 points all clustered together, because you won't get as good a fit if you spread out your control points across the image. So the one thing you want to do is find good visible locations that you can use as your control point that's easily distinguishable on your raster image as well as on your base map, so that you can make sure that you're selecting the same points. So, water features are good for locating, kind of general areas of where you want to reference your image to, but I wouldn't recommend using water features as control points, because those features can change somewhat depending upon the water level at the time when the raster image was taken versus when it was digitized on the base map. So, what are some good control points? Well, normally it's either good visible fixed landmarks that don't change over time. Another good feature is like road intersections can also act as a good control point. So if we look at our image right now, of course we do see we have some water features, and it's fairly easily distinguishable. We see this layer, this river here that's flowing through. And if we notice, we have that same river here on our base map. And in addition, we have some oxbow lakes here that's also visible on our base map here. And so that kind of can help us get our bearings on where we're at. And if we were to zoom in around this image to start trying to identify some features to use as control points, like I said, road intersections typically serve as a good location for control points. So if I notice just to the southwest of the tip of this oxbow lake here, looks like there's a road intersection in this area where we have a street coming into this highway. And so that could be used as a good control point if we can locate that same feature here on our base map in our Simple GIS client window. And so here's the tip of that oxbow I was looking at, my raster image, and then just to the southwest I see I have that same street coming into this highway. So if I was to zoom in around this area, here's the street that's coming in and intersecting that highway, which is the same street here under my image here on my Geo Reference Data dialog that's coming in. So now what I want to do is mark this location on my image as far as the actual coordinate for the pixel value here. And so the way I'm going to do that is underneath this Raster X, Raster Y edit box at the top of my Geo Reference Data dialog, I have this button here with a pencil icon. If I click on that and then click at this intersection of this street and highway through this median, and as I do that, I notice it places a blue star on the image, and it also populates the X value and Y value for the pixel coordinate on my raster image. Now I need to do the same thing to mark the real world coordinate for that location on my vector X and vector Y. And so I'm going to use the tool button just to the right of those edit boxes. Again, it has the pencil icon on it. And if I click on this tool button, but instead of clicking on the image here under my Geo Reference Data dialog box, I'm going to come to my Simple GIS client window and click on that intersecting point on my base map here. And as I do that, again, I see I get a blue star on the map, and it also populates the actual real world X and Y coordinate. And so now I want to add this relationship as a control point to my control point grids at the bottom. So I'm going to come back again to my tool button here that says Insert Control Point. And as I click on that tool button, I see that it adds it as a control point at the bottom of my dialog in my control points grid. Now again, I need at least 3 to actually georeference the image. So at this point, I'm going to zoom back out in my Geo Reference Data dialog, looking at my raster image to try and find another distinguishable feature that I can use as a control point. And again, I also want to kind of spread them out across my image to make sure I get the best fit possible. So as I zoom in, I notice there's a small airport runway located here next to this lake. And so let me zoom out on my Simple GIS client base map and try and locate that same feature. And as I move over, I do see there is a small airport runway here. Here's the lake feature we were looking at. You can notice it mirrors some of those same fingers on the lake that's coming out. And so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. And as I zoom in around this runway, you know, I could maybe try and use the corner of the runway as a reference. Personally, I like to use road intersections, and so I see that I have, in the absence of, of another landmark, but I notice I have this road that travels just north of the end of the runway, and then there is an intersecting point with another road to the west. And so I'm going to continue to zoom in around this area, and then let's see if we can find that same feature. I'll use my little magnifying glass around the north end of the runway, and I can see here's that same road feature, and here's the actual road intersection. And I'll just zoom in a little more. And so now I'm going to mark this location on my raster image, again using my pencil tool button and clicking on the image, and it adds in the pixel values. And now I need to mark that same location on my X and Y real world coordinates. So I'm going to click that same location, it adds in the star, and now I'm going to insert this relationship as a control point, and it's now listed into my control point grid at the bottom. And so now let's try and find one more. So I'm going to zoom out on my image, and let's try and find one maybe towards the bottom right hand corner of my image here. So I continue to zoom in. You know, I see, again, I said landmarks are good. Here's a particular landmark here. Let's see if that exists on the base map. So I'm going to come to Simple GIS Client. I'm zooming out, and I'm going to try and get to around the same area. And I believe that's the same area. So it looks like there's a bridge crossing the river, and then it kind of makes a bend down around, which looks like it's this bridge area here, but I don't see that same landmark feature. But there is, again, some more road intersections that I could use. So as I see, as the highway comes off of the bridge and makes the bend down, there's another intersecting point shortly after the bend. And if I notice on my Simple GIS client window here is I'm following that same bridge coming down, and there's that same intersecting point. So I'll just zoom in to that area. And here's the actual intersecting point that we're looking at in this particular image. Zoom in a little more. And so now I can mark that same location here on my image. And again, using the pencil icon here, I'll come over to my Simple GIS client window on the base map and mark that same point. And now I'm going to insert this control point. And what you're going to see as I insert, since this is the third control point, and now I have 3 points that it can georeference, as I insert this control point, you now see the raster image appear in my Simple GIS client window. And so as I'm just going to use my mouse wheel to zoom out, I see that the image has been referenced into my Simple GIS client window here. And again, you remember I changed my layer order and placed my image on top of the OpenStreetMap, so you can see how it's rendering the image on top of my OpenStreetMap base data. And looking at it, I see that I got a pretty good fit just with those 3 control points. If I look here at the roads, and I zoom in this area, I see, you know, these roads are matching fairly well. I might could improve on this a little bit. Again, those road intersections may not be exact. You know, really it's just about finding, you know, easily identifiable features that are fixed in your image and that are also identified on your base map. And the more closely you can get, you know, maybe a building corner might be a good, again, any type of landmarks that doesn't change over time makes a good control point. But all in all, I think we got a pretty good fit with this image. And so if we were through with this, now I can just dismiss my dialog box. And so I just simply come along the left-hand side against Geo Reference Data, and I could just click on this button at the bottom left corner that has the kind of the red button with the X in the middle that says Exit. And so as I inserted the control points, once I have that third control point, it automatically generates the world file for the image. The other thing, just as an exclamation, I'll point out, if you are not happy with one of these control points and wanted a do-over, you could select on one of these rows just by clicking in it. And as you do that, there is a tool button here that you can select to remove that point. And so if you click on this actual button, it would remove that row out of your list of control points. In addition, let's say you had already previously referenced this image and already had a world file, and if you wanted to load the control points that you had previously used to generate that, you could click on this button here to load those reference points automatically, and then you could go in and edit them if you wanted to continue to try and refine your georeferencing. And so at this point, I think I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm just going to dismiss this dialog box. So I'll click on my exit button here in the bottom left corner. And again, as you can see now, as I continue to zoom out, it is referenced in my imagery. And again, using just those 3 control points, looks like it did a pretty good job of laying in the imagery on my map. And so that's it. Again, if you want more information, I would encourage you to visit our website. It's simplegissoftware.com. Again, the Simple GIS client application comes with a free 30-day trial that you can download and try, and is fully functional for the full 30 days. And you can also download that from our website. Again, that website is simplegissoftware.com. Thank you. Have a good day.